Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, Marisa. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear
Okay.
me?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. So I think it's time. We're just about to start another Effisus Connected Value session. Today, as you're all aware, we'll be talking about facade interfaces and specific when it comes to prefabrication. I'll be followed today by my colleague Marisa Carvalho, which is part of the technical department.
Yes.
So something very specific, very technical. Make sure you will be able here to. I'm here to answer any question you have. So for those here the first time, we have a chat. So any additional comments or question you have, just feel free to ask. So when it comes to facade interfaces, this is a very hot topic we've been discussing in the past few weeks, and this is pretty much I'll say a part two of what we've been discussing when it comes to this type of prefabrication. So it's very current, specific in UK market, which I'm more active. We see a lot of balconies, prefab balconies, full interfaces, full frames in this type of application. And most of the jobs is being done at factory to reduce all these tasks at site, and again to reduce as much as possible all the errors and mistakes we see at site when it comes to this type of application. You see here a couple Windows interfaces that was applied, or EPDM, or the full frame at factories, and later on was only installed at site. As I mentioned, this is a sort of a part two. We have multiple solutions when it comes to facade or sealing of the facade interfaces. Today we'll be focusing on a couple of those. So facade interfaces, waterproofing, what to consider. So here are a couple of factors, a couple of things that we decide to brought today. So water, air, vapor permeability, compatibilities. What Effisus does is we test all the materials previously that's going to be applied again on the interfaces. Most of the time, since we're a full envelope provider, we have multiple solutions that it doesn't even have to be tested previously because, of course, it's part of a whole system. But sometimes we find, specific in UK or other, even other markets, we see a couple of work package where you have a lot of different providers, and sometimes no one is able to understand or test compatibility between these different products that's been applied on interfaces. Another factor we should take in consideration is the UV exposure. For instance, if you have an open client joint, or even during the phase of the construction, all the products, all the materials have to have a sort of a UV resistance, again, depending how exposed it will be. And all this to assure the similarity between and the uniformization or the compatibility of all these products being applied. Another very hot topic, it's fire when it comes to fire resistance, correct, Marisa?
Yes. Yes.
It's been discussed in a lot, see a lot of project requirements when it comes to fire.
Yes. Sorry, John. Another thing that it's important to consider it when you are speaking about interface weatherproofing. It's about movements between different materials. I guess it's another topic very important to consider it and
Yeah,
well.
understanding the structure aspects of the project, and again, this is will be very particular to each project, because sometimes we see non-movement, or but sometimes there are a couple of millimeters there in between these interfaces. And again, all the solutions we brought, or all the solutions that should be applied on this type of interfaces, must allow this sort of movements. Correct, Marisa?
Yes.
So you need to have some flexibility, stressability between these materials.
Yes.
Another factor it's important to mention is the access during the installation, during the process of installation of the products, because sometimes you have very hard conditions aside. We are aware, we're very active, we go constantly aside, and we find quite difficult sometimes to have our some products being installed. So this is, when it comes to prefabrication, I would say this is quite key and very important to reduce all the errors that we'll see. But not all of that. We will absolutely assure that install it at factories, for instance. We'll guarantee you have no problems on site when it comes to the installation of this type of interfaces. So it's reducing the errors and making the installation, the whole process, as much easy as possible. So here, I like to decide. I always like to bring this slide here because I think it's very important to differentiate or understand how the market, or how, as we call it, standard market works. So basically, we have a max production, huge factories, huge providers, that, but there is no dialogue between the factory and the customers. What we have here is orders, only orders, and it's a very max production. So it's only one way. The factory produce very large quantities, sometimes very limited, I would say, dimensions, depending on the production itself. And this is what the customer gets. Again, sometimes it's followed by a customer service, sometimes it's not. What Effisus does is something very different, and we're very proud of it. It's having this interactive dialogue. This is, we call it Effisus methodology. We are close to the customer as much as possible. And we do only understand, you see later on, when we have this type of a very specific solutions. Sometimes it's, I'll say, tailor-made or bespoke solutions, because we understand what actually the client needs. It only having this interactive dialogue is not just one way. We propose, the client sees, we get it back, correct, Marisa? The technical department studies all these details.
Yes, as you are very close to the client, it's very easy to discuss and to change and to find solution with the client. So this is our main advantage, to be so close and have this interactive dialogue with our customers.
Yeah, Marisa, and can, if you allow, just explain a little bit how this process actually work. I would say, as first approach from the client, what we need from the client side, what we need to analyze these details.
Yes, at first stage, the client sends us all the trail drawings that they have. We also have a meeting to discuss the project goals, what they need. Well, all the parameters to take in consideration to the construction. After that, we start to design the weatherproofing solution, and discuss with the client if you are fulfilling all the requirements for the project, if all the materials solution it's okay, and after that we start to produce, to install, to make a mock-up test. Well, all the after stage, yes.
So here it's important to mention, since we bring very personalized pieces or very personalized solutions, there's none, I'll say, nothing standard about our approach, because it's very specific for that project, very specific for that client, and that's why we it's important to, you see, to get involved in a very early stage to understand, because most of the solutions require an additional times in comparison with having just a standard normal solution.
Yes.
So when it comes to prefabrication or this type of pieces, as this pyramid, we already discussed in other sessions. So standard rows, unlimited widths. We're able to have self-adhesive bands attached to the PDM membranes. We're able even to have a clipping gasket. We have over 100 typologies, a register of gasket and compatibility with the materials, which you attach to the groove. So this is, as I mentioned, this is a continuing session of other one. So today we'll be focusing on these other solutions. So we're able to create prefab corners, as well whole frames, prefab frames, and even to do full customization, which is I'll say a 3D prefab pieces. We'll discuss this later on, and then it up to full customization. And as much customizable, as much bespoke in all these pieces are, more you have the add value of the project. So again, focusing today on those three. So when it comes to prefabricating of the corners, we all know that these pieces are very hard to seal at site, as they're the weakest point when it comes to this part of the interfaces. Correct, Marisa? And at site is very difficult, quite difficult. As here, you see this is a quite standard type of corner, but again, we're able to do pretty much everything when it comes to this.
Yes, on the right image, is it is as you are saying, it's a standard corner to seal a standard shape or with a standard dimensions. When you are speaking about the window on the left, it's more complicated. In this project, we have a lot of windows with different shapes, with different dimensions. You had created a corner, a shape corner with dimensions to all of the project. Well, it was a customized project, very complex, because it's not a standard window with standard dimensions. And well, yes.
So the thing is about corners, so you find quite easy to seal the bottom, the left part, but again, when it comes to corners, you have a very uh, complexity that's quite different to each type of windows. So sometimes we face it standard corners, as you see here, but they could be very complex. And the thing is, Marisa, the important things about having prefab corners is we should not allow that this type of corners, this type of sealing details should be done at site. Again, without sometimes the proper conditions, sometimes the installer doesn't have the actual knowledge of how it's going to be sealed this type of interfaces, and it will lead to a lot of serious problems at site. What we actually see, and when you don't have this type of prefabrication, when you have hard corners to seal, it's just a ball of adhesive, a ball of glue. So will not even fulfill the whole purpose of having a PDM, which is 100% waterproof material, but again, that needs to be flexible to absorb some of this movement that we've been discussing as well. Correct, Marisa?
Yes, another thing that is important to mention as you are focused, these corners are making in EPDM compound. So you are speaking about a height durability, height resistance to UV. Well, a lot of advantage that EPDM have. Here you also can ensure this advantage. You also are speaking about some products that it's compatible with all of materials in buildings. So it's a material that everybody knows about it. So yes, as you are speaking out, it's important to mention the movements this solution can allow the interfaces, and you can ensure the perfect sealing. Yes.
Absolutely, Marisa. So here at the bottom left, you have quite an idea when I was mentioned this hard corners. And when it comes to this type of technology, Marisa, it's important to mention that this is based on hot vulcanization. Can you just explain how this technology works? How important it is to have a hot vulcanized piece like that?
Yes, this is a process a little different. It's auto-vulcanization. So uh, on the first corner at left, you are speaking about a corner made on the mold. So when you are focused on the corner on the middle, you are speaking about another technology. This is auto-vulcanization. So you can produce different corns without any mold. So this is it is more easy to make a lot of dimensions, a lot of shapes, a lot well.
And not only that, Marisa, but it allows us to have a very hot bonding on this joint, a very strong bonding on this joint. in comparison of having just a adhesive or a sealant on the joint, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so again, when it comes to prefabrication, we're even able to make, instead of corners as we saw, we can make a whole frame. So here you see it have this U sleeve, so sort of a half a frame. But as you see in the picture, we can make a full frame to apply around the windows. And again, this could be sometimes even pre-installed at factory. And when it comes to site, all you have to do is apply that piece of adhesive around the perimeter to seal the APDM on the concrete slab, for instance. Or yeah, even install that on site. So this is quite something different as the market is approaching. What I like to mention about having a prefab frame is also sometimes this is again how important it is to understand the project requirements, because sometimes you have, I don't know, 10 20 different typologies, correct, Marisa, of windows, and what Effisus does is actually stud whatever the project needs. And sometimes making a U piece like that, we're able to fulfill the bottom of the top part, and then all the left, it's just a matter of overlapping or a strip of membrane.
Yes, it's important to mention that this process, it's very important when you are speaking to put and to seal and to prepare this job at factory. So when all of the windows goes to the buildings, the process to install it's very easy. You only must to glue the membrane.
Yeah, apply of adhesive, which is also when it comes to all this process. If I forgot to mention, we
Yeah.
have all the materials assured, the compatibility between them, and we have very specific accessories as for fixing or sealing, tested and the compatibility between them as a part of a system for the installation. So again, it all comes to the project requirements. And I'll say this is the golden part of the presentation when it comes to having 3D pieces. So this is very, very, very specific, as I mentioned, bespoke, sort of a tailor-made, and some of them are even handmade pieces for sealing of this type of interfaces. As Marisa mentioned, we are only allowed to make this type of pieces, having this dialogue with the client, understanding the requirements of the project, and studying in advance what they need. So when it comes to having a prefab through 3D pieces, because of the technology that we have, sometimes the client even approach us to make, for instance, this type of corners. As you see here, this is how this groove is, and the client actually had it this previous, but they didn't have this central part bonded. So the client is aware that we have this technology to make this type of pieces. So what we did was actually join and make this whole pieces for this frame. Correct, Marisa?
Yes, in this project, the client had a lot of profiles that, well, he had from the past, and he find another building, another construction that you will need the same profiles to the windows. So he come to meeting us, and well, he asked how can Effisus help them this project. So we have created this middle part vulcanization. So the process, these pieces, this vulcanization was made with a mold with the EPDM injection. So you can ensure the perfect seal between the
And this is Marisa, is the I would say the other technology we have available to make this sort of a pieces. The first one, as you mentioned, is the hot vulcanization to bond the joints between, and the other one is having the injection molding, specifically die moldings to make these 3D different materials. Here, I think one important thing to mention is to let the clients imagine, because it's almost unlimited the possibilities. So when it comes to personalize, having this type of different shapes of pieces, it's almost unlimited and very, very, very personalized solution. So here, for instance, you see in UK, we have this is a very, very common. We have a lot of steel balconies connectors. When you have this type of main intersection, then you only will attach the balcony after. So this is a quite a different thing to seal, having this type of connectors. In some cases, here was a project that you have even a inclination, which is even more hard to have this type of sealing. So very, very limited space, sometimes a very high-rise buildings, and it's very difficult to seal you because, again, you don't have the proper space, you don't have the proper conditions. Sometimes, and most of the time, these pieces are even welded. So whatever sealant you have previously applied there will totally melt it. And what we do is made these whole EPDM bespoke pieces for specific for these two connectors. We have some options even where you have like an open joint, so you only have to attach around the steel connector. Correct, Marisa? What else can we do here?
So this solution, when you are speaking about open joints or without or closed joints, it's because requirements project when you feel when it's very hard to install and you haven't space and well, so you can analyzing all of the requirements of your project and to decide how to make it sleeve.
And here is the another type of prefab 3D pieces. Was a Norman Foster project in Madrid. This is ongoing. We're very proud of this application because, as you see, you have a lot of this type of aluminum slash window interfaces of the facade. And as you see, it will be quite hard. And if you allow me, I'll say almost impossible to have this type of solution made it for standard matters, having just a normal PDM. They doing this as a side was be very, very complicated, very long processing. So as you see, you have many different weak points on this application, on this type of X crossing section interfaces. And what we did, we made this X, and even another one, Marisa, was a Y, correct? This is two types, an X and Y shape. Again, from different parts of this type of interfaces. So we made these pieces using the technology we have. It was very, very, very assuring the quality of the work, whatever the client designed. But then all of this was only possible because the client first was aware that we were able to do this. They trust us with this mission to fulfill this project. And the important thing is sometimes we think it's quite hard or it's quite impossible. Say, no way I could do something like that. But you can. And this is why we're here showing this type of solutions. So anything else I forgot to mention, Marisa, when it comes to technical aspects of the solution?
Yes, this project you have to apply this cross in the interfaces, and you have also sealed between the crosses with ECOFACADE to ensure all the sealing. And yes, you have made the 3D drawings. We have made a sample. You have sent to the client. He tested, and well, you start to install.
Yeah, perfect. And in the end, all we need is just apply a bit of adhesive around the interfaces and then place the membrane on top of it. For the rest of the legs, for the rest of the part of the aluminum profile, all you have to do is just apply a simple strip.
Yes.
Again, the most difficult part here is only this intersection, this interface intersecting itself. So here is a couple of detailing drawings. Marisa, could you help me here a little bit with this?
Yes, on the top of the slide, it's a little it's a bit what you are making in the technical department. So you produce detailed drawings, you design weatherproofing solutions. So you have taken consideration your typology, your needs. So this is first stage. You start to produce detailed drawings to send you to discuss with you, and well, before to start to produce. After that, well, you start you make the next stage. So you produce a sample. You are going to the factory to meeting with the clients to install, to teach how to install, and
Yeah.
well,
In this process is very important, as you mentioned. We first do all this detailing, all this very specific drawings, and we always made a sample. So the client have received the sample, test it on that specific corner and specific interfaces, see if how it fits. If you need any adjustment, we go back.
yes,
You draw in again, correct, Marisa? We do all
yes.
the adjustment necessaries, and it goes for factory for production.
That's
Here,
why it's sorry, Jean.
go
That's why
ahead.
it's so important the difference between the standard market and the methodology Effisus, because we are very closer to the client, to the factory, and it's easy from our side to make anything difference to adjust to the project.
Absolutely, Marisa. So I was just saying here we have another couple of pictures. This is some example when it comes to the factory production. As you see, as I mentioned, this is sort of a handmade, tailor-made pieces. So here, I think Marisa would even rather you mention this, but this is when it comes to our consulting or technical support, whatever Ephesus does to support, to have this extra service to bring to the client. So first thing we do is always made after having all these drawings, this couple of standard drawings from the client side, we made a technical submission, which is a document that contains the client's drawings with our recommendations, with our suggested solutions, and sometimes even go for tenders or cross-tender project. This is more for this communication that we have for the architects, from the facade contractors. We always made this type of documents, and it's very nice having an additional format of this type of exchange of information between the parts. Another thing we do, as I mentioned, we always test the materials. We have a lot of internal data with the most common substracts and most common things we find inside. But we, depending on the project itself, we can always go for testing something different, something that we're not very used to. Correct, Marisa? We always go for testing for laboratories to see how these materials will work together.
Yes, you have a historic data, a data historic with a lot of compatibilities, a lot of surface, a lot of tests already done. So if our client has another product, another substrate, another membrane or roofing membrane in contact with our products, yes, you test compatibility between them. Yes.
So another thing is since Ephesus has different commercial and technical departments located in different parts of the world, we've been involved in many projects around the globe. We're even able to have this being close to this type of all applications. So we do a lot of site visits, practical training. We have very specific how can I say, format for the installers. So wherever we go website, this is something very intuitive, very easy, that leads no gap for doubts when it comes to our application of our products. And we do this constantly, depending on the projects, once a month, every 3 months, to assure that all the application is being followed. Or even submit a site visit report, which contains all the notes, all the current recommendations, whatever we went on site, and future recommendations for the application. So here is just a couple of examples of drawings, metal statements. You have this type of perforations, how we actually seal. We do provide all of these documents, as I mentioned, project training, site visit reports. we submit all of these documents along with just as the comment you are aware, manual installations from the products. And again, all this, the importance of having a detailing of these interfaces or having this type of pieces, it all comes to find the most suitable or the most adequate material to apply for every single project requirement. Again, this is all bespoke. This is all very personal to each project. We do not have, for instance, a standard corner. Whatever we do is for that specific interface, for that specific project. And it's important to have all the compatibilities assured, as we've been mentioned. We do the testing, but also if it's all part of a system, you already have it right over there, the compatibility assured between the materials being applied. So to reduce all the errors, to reduce all the faults, design faults that we even find, it's having an extra assurance that whatever the architect, whatever the consultant designed is exactly going to be applied right there at site. And again, to improve the whole efficiency of the project. Marisa, did I forget something, mention something here?
No, well, you are focused in this topic, in this thematic, because you believe this really important point. That a lot of times you see a lot of errors in the buildings. Well, a lot of persons making a completely wrong job. So this is really important to focus and to take care and ensure these ceilings.
Absolutely, because I mean, talking specific about facades, there's so many different components, so many different layers, and again, all different providers, and sometimes at site we see a lot of mistakes not done because they wanted to commit the mistake, but because of the lacking of detail, the lacking of instruction. So that's why I think it's very important to have for a prefabricated pieces. Again, not all projects will need this. This is very specific, and here is just to show actually possibilities that you could have. And sometimes a U project will require having this type of prefabrication pieces for the interfaces. So thank you so much for attending. So we're just starting our week session today, but I'll have many other Effisus Connect Developer session during this week. Thank you once again, Marisa. Well, I think one important thing to mention is to having your feedback. So Marisa will leave at the chat comment session the link here from our website. So anything positive or negative you have to say, only to improve our work, please feel free to leave your comment right there at the link that Marisa is just going to post.
Thank you, João.